Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and this week again we're back at the workbench because I wanted to show you this week how I make small little speaker assemblies. Now we're going to be using the SoundTraxx 810154 Mini Cube, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to make little assemblies of these that you can easily drop into your models. Now the cases we're going to be talking about today are if you're putting them next to each other so that way you get a nice assembly. But if you have a model where, say, you need to mount one up towards the front, one up towards the back, then this wouldn't necessarily apply. But we're going to go ahead and show you how to make a couple of different assemblies with just some general hobby supplies that you probably already have laying around, so that way you can make a nice, reliable, easy to make little speaker assembly that you can now mount into your model. So I'm going to go ahead and move the camera so that you guys can see what I'm working on down here below, because how-to video doesn't do any good if you're looking at me. Anyway, I'm going to move the camera and I'll be right back. Okay, so in front of me I have basically our supplies that we'll need. Obviously we'll need our 810154 mini cubes. We're going to build two different assemblies today, so I've got 4 cube speakers sitting here in front of us. We're going to use some liquid plastic adhesive. These are these little applicator syringe or needles, whatever you want to call it. I've got this styrene tacket too. Supposedly this is the same stuff or whatever as the 10X that used to be there for years and years. Styrene tacket, but if you still have some of the 10X bottles, you can certainly use that, or you can use your favorite liquid plastic cement of your choice. Also, we'll need a pair of just some fine needle nose tweezers, X-Acto knife, and we're going to use some styrene. The size is not quite as imperative. You just want to make sure that you got some small strips, because what we're going to do is we're going to mount some styrene to the sides of this to help hold the assembly in place. And then the only other thing we've got, and I got some of these over here in the scrap pile, but this is the leftover lead of a resistor that I had used for an installation. And you can buy resistors in multiple packs. These are ones I got from DigiKey, but when you cut the end off, you've got all this extra wire on the ends there that you don't necessarily need. So how you cut it off, but then don't throw them all away, because we're going to reuse that in today's video. And that's pretty much it. Now, I'm not going to solder the wire onto it, but we're going to show you how to build these assemblies. Now, to do the soldering, of course, you'll need your solder, and then you'll need some Chip Quick. Now, you can see I'm almost out. This is the solder flux. It's called Chip Quick SMD 291NL, and you can get this at DigiKey or Amazon or whatever, but you can tell that I'm almost out. The good news is, in the workbench below, I've already got another tube of it ready to go. So, anyway, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So, first thing we want to do is I'm just going to move 2 of these off to the side, and we're going to open up 2 of the speakers. We're going to take the speaker out. There's 1, and there's 2. Now, these speakers come with a small rubber band wrapped around it, and that's because these speakers are pretty much just press fit in, and 9 times out of 10, it's not going to make a difference. But what I like to do is take my liquid plastic cement here and put a drop or 2 on the sides, just at that seam. And what it does, it helps glue it in place to make sure that it's not going to pop out, let's say for argument's sake, if we drop it or whatever the case is. Now, when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you get it on the ledge of the speaker and not up along in here where it might get into and attack this speaker cone, because this is a liquid plastic cement. So we're just going to hit this edge, this little shelf. Then once that's in, then we can take these rubber bands off and stash them off to the side for right now. Now, the other thing you're going to notice about this particular baffle is it's actually somewhat angled on the underside. So it's kind of angled towards the bottom. It's not a square, and so what happens when you put them together, they can actually not be flat. And in order to be flat, you're going to see a small little gap there, and that's what the plastic is for. We're going to make sure that that's a reinforced side here to make sure that that gap is maintained so that they're flat. On the speaker back here, you've got your two terminals, and we're going to show you how to solder to those so that you can have a successful installation. Now, another question that I get asked a lot is, which one's positive, which one's minus? Well, when we look at the speaker card, and I'm going to grab this back from one of our packaging, when you sit it over here, you can see that this side is positive and this side is negative. Now, when you're wiring to the decoder, ultimately, it doesn't matter. We're using the same type of speaker. So if we pick one to be plus and one to be minus, it ultimately doesn't matter. But when you're wiring these together, what we're going to do is we're going to put them side by side so that the minuses, the minus on this speaker here is next to the plus on this speaker, and we're going to use that little metal jumper, where'd it go? The little metal wire jumper to make the joint between these two. Now, as you notice, when you put them close, the magnet tends to force them apart. So this is where you have to be a little bit patient. So first off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of my strip styrene out, and the rest of those can go away. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure a piece that's so on my grid here, you can see these 1/2 inch, you can see it's about a 1/2 inch. So if I cut a piece of just a little bit shorter than this entire length, then I should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to cut a piece just like that. Then I'm going to take my second one. I'm going to match it up. Just like that. Now we can take that styrene and set it aside. Now here's where the fun part comes. So what we're going to do is, and I'm hoping I can finagle my hands, these giant bear claws here, so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two speakers and essentially hold them side by side. So in order for that joint to be made, I have to be holding it. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run some of this styrene cement along that joint and let it start setting up. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these pieces of styrene, scrap styrene that I cut, set it there along the side, and we're going to put just a little drop of that liquid plastic cement, hold it in place. Never mind the noise in the background, guys. That's my wife working on her craft side. It's one of the benefits of having a joint craft room. Chrissy, say hello.
Hello.
All right, so you can see now that I've got this piece of styrene here. We've got our small gap right there, and these are joined along the side. So now what we're going to do is do the same thing on the other side. Is we're going to go ahead, put the cement there. And just like that. Now we have a speaker assembly that is in the process of curing. So we're going to let the glue adhere and dry for a few moments, and then we'll be soldering to it. But basically you want to make sure, and because my finger was in the way, I'm going to go ahead and make sure there's enough cement on this side to help hold it in place. There we go. And that's all it takes. So now we have a small little speaker assembly. Now these are the side-by-side speakers. Now when Athearn builds their speakers for their models, and then this is where we're going to grab our next two speakers. When Athearn does theirs for their models, the speakers are actually placed end to end. And so ultimately, we're going to kind of do a similar process in this particular case. But much like what we did in the first one where we're doing it this way, when I move the speakers and turn them this way, you'll notice that now the minus and the plus are here instead of next to each other. And so we're just going to create another assembly just like this. But also, the cube speaker isn't square. So if we put them like that, of course, with two speakers, lengthwise, you can see it's a lot more evident that it's not straight. So we're going to go ahead and make another assembly. So we're going to go ahead and remove our rubber bands. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our glue applicator again, put a little bit of glue on the side here just to make sure that these are secured in place, just like that. All right. Now, when we measure this for the length, you'll notice that now we're just a little bit longer than one side. So if I cut this styrene strip a little longer, then we'll kind of get a feel for it. So I'm just going to cut this just like that. And remember, these cuts don't necessarily have to be square. They're just a brace. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to take our glue, which the applicator is over here. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to put the glue between the two. We're going to make sure we're squared up. Now we're going to take our styrene strip and just put a little bit of styrene cement on here. And there you go. And just like that. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side like we did before. You can see these are quick and easy to build dual cube speaker assemblies. So again, we're going to take our styrene cement. Whoops. Piece of styrene moved. Here we go. There we go. And now it's secured. And there we go. Now we have, again, a dual cube speaker assembly, but this time we're linear. Instead of short and fat, we're long and skinny. So now comes the fun part. Now we're going to solder our bridge between these two solder joints. And this is where it takes a little bit of patience, skill. Sure, let's go with skill. I like that. So we're going to turn on our soldering iron. Get our solder over here. Now, when we're soldering to this, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure how long we need this piece. Because if we go too far, we potentially can touch the magnet on the back, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to simply, that's probably good right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a wire cutter and just cut a piece just like that. Now this other one, let's see where this ends up. And we're going to end up with a similar sized piece, about like that. I'm going to cut that. Okay, now that can go back into storage. Now you can get quite a few of these because this leg of this LED didn't really shorten by a lot. We're only cutting a little bit. But now it's time to put the solder on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our flux. And we're just going to put a little bit of flux here on these joints, on the terminals. And I like to do all four of them because why not? Let's start with the first one. Now, here's your pro tip. That is a metal tip. Even though it's hot, it's still a metal tip. Metal tips can be attracted to magnets. So if you're soldering, that magnet can jump and attach itself to the soldering iron, which is not what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a spare set of cutters, and we're actually going to lay it just like that across the speaker over the magnet. And that way, it's not going to jump up to it's not going to magnetize itself to the soldering iron tip because the tool is holding it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of solder on the end of our iron. There we go. And we're just going to touch these terminals and let the flux draw the solder onto the terminal. We're going to make our solder joints. Okay. Just like that. Now that's also going to be the solder we're going to use to, oops, need a little bit more solder on there. And there we go. Okay. I'm going to put the soldering iron down. So now you can see I've got the 4 balls of solder on my connections. And so now the easy part is, quote unquote easy part. Now we're just going to grip our small piece of metal with our tweezers. We're going to hold it over our joints, and then we're going to heat the soldering iron on, and this is going to go into, it's a little bit of a coordination effort, and this is going to go into the soldering iron, or those connections we made, just like that. And now you can see that it's actually been made on both sides. Now you can see I cut this a little bit long. It's fine as long as it doesn't touch the magnets. If you're worried about it, you can always come in here, trim off the excess, just like that. Come on. Well, anyway, there you go. So now all we do is take our wire, solder it to the plus and minus side here, and there's your dual cube speaker assembly. Now we're going to do the same thing over here to this one. So again, we're going to put our flux on the 4 joints. And since we know that plus and minus are opposite each other, it doesn't matter which one goes where. But now, when we're making our solder joints, or when we're using our tool, hang on, let's get this guy out of the way. We just have to make sure to pull that apart a little bit further to make sure that we can reach that terminal there. Make sure to clean off the soldering iron tip. Now we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to touch these terminals. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Easy peasy. Now we're going to get our cut piece of metal, just like we did before, and we're just going to lay that right across there again. So now, get our soldering iron. And I want to point out that when I did this on the other one, the soldering iron, the heat travels through this metal strip and it actually melts the solder on the other one. So that's why you didn't see me have to go in and solder the other terminal, because this is already melting. And that didn't do the job. There we go. All right. So there you go, and you can see that we've got a clean solder joint. And this just helps take up less space, because rather than soldering a wire to horseshoe to the next terminal, you can just use an extra piece of the resistors that you've cut off over the end. So now there you go. You've got 2 different types of speaker cube assemblies ready to go for your installations. And you saw how fast we did this. In about 17 minutes, we built 2 of them. And that's explaining step by step what I'm doing, starting from start to scratch. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. So guys, I hope this has been helpful for you. This shows you just one of the 2 cube speaker assemblies that we made. And so that way you can see how easy they are to make. And now you can mount these inside your model pretty easily. So with that, I hope this has been helpful for you. If you guys like this type of content, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you're notified every time SoundTraxx posts a video on our YouTube channel here. And also make sure to make a comment. If you have any comments, thoughts about these speaker assemblies, or if you'd like to have a further conversation, send us an email at support@soundtraxx.com, and we'll carry on a deeper conversation as long as you need, because we are here to help you. So guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.